So this was one of those decks that really took Pioneer by storm for a few weeks, and it's died down a bit since then, but still pops up from time to time. You see Jake Coenen on the left, 3-0 with it so far. And the big fork in the road there is, do you want to play the conventional list, like the boring stock Neoform Atraxa deck, or do you want to play Soulflayer? So that's a decision that really informs some of your other deck building choices. It seems like the classic list that we see from Jake is the go-to at this point, just keeping it lean and consistent. And starting off with founding the third path here on turn 2 for Jake.
Yeah, big card there. That card enables a lot of what's going on with this deck, as it does look like we have a Copper Coat Vanguard here attacking in for 3. That's going to put Jake down to 15.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of mono white humans this weekend. A lot of copies in our tournament. Gets a big new addition with Copper Coat Vanguard in the Aftermath set for March of the Machine. And this was a deck which is always pretty popular, pretty cheap and accessible if you're looking to take more turn Pioneer, and just got a big upgrade. So yeah, no surprise to see that deck doing well.
100%. As we do see the mill of 4 here, that's going to set up our Delve if we wanted to do such a thing. But it looks like we're going to tap through. Jake's deciding some different tapping of the mana. As we do see another founding of the third path here. And it looks like we're going to go straight to chapter 2. So we're going to mill 4 more cards. Hit an Otherworldly Gaze there. That's a cool little flashback card. And then we're going to delve up for Tasigur here. And that's going to set up our Neoform. And we found the Neoform in the graveyard for the Atraxa. So big draw step here for Caleb to find an answer for this Tasigur.
Yeah, Caleb knows the onus on them now to find an answer to the Tasigur this turn. And that's 3 mana for, there's Brutal Cathar taking care of Tasigur. So that's the answer that they needed, crunching in for 5 again. So Jake now on the back foot in a pretty perilous position.
Yeah, this matchup is one where there are only a few cards Caleb really has that can swing things, but they are very high impact. So Brutal Cathar, actually Caleb have some Fateful Absences in the main deck. That sort of tech decision is going to go a long way here. As you know, Jake now has to trigger chapter 3 of both of these, and you must exile it. So, Otherworldly Gaze and Thoughtseize seem to be the ones that way we can keep Neoform for later, but Jake's going to have to do that here. And you have to spend the mana too if you want to cast them. So spending a blue, look at the top 3 and put some back or put them in the graveyard.
Yeah, we do have Revolt now, so a Fatal Push could unlock the Tasigur from underneath the Brutal Cathar, but that needs to happen, and it needs to happen right now, I think, for Jake to stay in this game.
Yeah. We do see a Hooting Mandrill, so that's going to allow some blocking. It looks like we're going to keep the Otherworldly Gaze in the graveyard. And
but there's Neoform. Okay, I spoke too soon. Wow. So we're going to have an 8/8 Atraxa with that +1/+1 counter, just the cherry on top, coming in here. And the beauty of Atraxa is, even if you whiff, so to speak, on the trigger, you still have an 8/8 vigilant, flying, lifelinking Death Touch creature. That's going to be good enough a lot of the time.
Yes. Yeah, even without the extra cards drawn right now, this 8/8 Vigilance Lifelink, more than enough. The flying, chef's kiss on that here. So we're going to see Caleb cut the deck, and then Jake's going to need to reveal the top 10 cards of their deck. And we're going to put one of each card type into our hand. So, we'll get to see exactly what Jake picks, but you can, from what we've seen so far, a sorcery, a land, a creature are all going to be in Jake's hand, just a matter of which one. And it looks like that's all we hit is land and sorcery and creature. So looks like we're grabbing Neoform and Tasigur so we can run it back, as the kids say, and we just grab an island.
Yeah, so Caleb is going to need... doing the math quickly on if Brave the Elements will get the job done. So it looks like we would come up just short, in fact. I think, so Caleb has 8 power in play, is that right?
Yes.
With the Vanguard, and then so if there's a Thoughteize Lieutenant, another Copper Coat Vanguard, Luminarch Aspirant, even that could get him over the finish line in conjunction with the Brave. Otherwise, gonna need one of those removal spells, and there aren't that many left.
100%. As we do see a land for the turn, not exactly what you want for Caleb if you're having to think. Jake's tapped out, and so if you had a clean answer, you'd be able to go the distance here. But now it's figuring out, like, okay, what exactly want to do? There is some merit to not casting anything. Your Brutal Cathar flips, and then you might be able to flip it back. And it looks like that's what Caleb's doing here, just ending the turn. And yeah, now if we double spell, we actually have a way to get through this Atraxa. We do see an attack for 8. Jake up to 17, Caleb down to 12.
Yeah, at a much healthier life level now, can afford to maybe take a hit from those creatures, and now, a top deck Brave the Elements or something would not be enough to get Caleb across the line.
Yep. We see Jake thinking here. I think Jake has another Atraxa in hand and a Stubborn Denial. So Summer Denial is really good at sort of stopping non-creature spells, which Caleb does have a few that are pretty pivotal. We were talking about a second ago there, so that will come in handy. But Jake's trying to figure out what exactly we want to do here. It looks like we are just going to maybe hard cast this Tasigur. So some tapping and untapping, figuring out what exactly we want to do. Yeah, it looks like we're going to spend 4 mana and just play Tasigur and pass the turn. That would play around any sort of spot removal that's a creature base there.
And the Tasigur also a meaningful blocker now as well. Bigger than any single creature on Caleb's side of the board.
Yep. As we do see another Coppercoat Vanguard that is going to push the power on the board, but maybe not enough to go through. As we do double spell here into Luminarch Aspirant, that's going to mean at the end of turn here for Caleb, Brutal Cathar is going to flip and re-get this Atraxa, and that's going to be big game for actually pushing through lethal. As we see Dauntless Bodyguard get the trigger, and boom, we're flipping back, and maybe Tasigur gets picked, but I doubt it. Now, we do have the other Neoform in hand, so we just need to fade the Atraxa for the draw for turn here. Maybe going to see an Otherworldly Gaze activation just to make sure you don't draw Atraxa.
Yeah, so Jake would love to find a Fatal Push or some other removal spell at this point. May not need it, though. Another 8/8 Atraxa coming down and another look at the top 10 cards.
Yeah, and, I think this is the last Atraxa in the deck. It looks like the deck only plays 3 copies and 1 is in hand. So if Caleb can kill this one and protect the Brutal Cathar, Caleb in a great spot, but that's a tall ask to have. Notably, though, Coppercoat Vanguard does add Ward 2 because there's 2 of them for these Brutal Cathars, but Jake has 3 lands, so it's just going to more limit on what can happen, less so than anything else. As it does look like we found Fatal Push, Founding of the Third Path, Hooting Mandrills, and we have a couple land choices. Like we're going to take a Thoughtseize just in case. And a Boseiju. Yeah, I wonder if you are supposed to just Brutal Cathar, like Fatal Push the Brutal Cathar now, Dom, and get your other Atraxa trigger and just legend away the smaller one, or if you're supposed to just hold off and wait for a little while.
Yeah, I think if you do it now, you maybe open yourself up to what if Caleb draws like another Brutal Cathar or one of those handful of removal spells. Whereas this way, you can force Caleb to try and reflip the Cathar or try and do something and then fire back with it at a later date. But we have Thoughtseize to clear the way. See what's hiding out over there.
Looks like just 1 spell and 2 lands. One of those lands wasn't a Ganja, though, so that could matter when it comes to, blocking situations, especially with a Tasigur or Hooting Mandrills. Looks like we are going to be tanking for a second and figuring out exactly if we can attack through this Atraxa, because it is possible to grow your team big enough that, as much as 8 life would swing things, you could technically attack through it. We might also just see Caleb be like, yeah, it's time to flip my Brutal Cathar back tonight and hope to double spell on a turn.
It does feel weird as the aggro deck to just consciously make a choice to not do anything, but that's what Cathar prompts you to do sometimes.
Yeah, and we are seeing a Luminarch Aspirant trigger. It looks like we're going to grow the Cathar. Caleb knows about the Fatal Push in Jake's hand, obviously, because all those cards are revealed. Looks like we're lining up what happens if we attack. It might just be what's happening is we can attack with some 4-power creatures, and we can either eat the Hooting Mandrills in combat, or if Atraxa blocks, we can Aganjo it down. Which is not the worst. Yeah, this Dauntless Bodyguard is just attacking, I believe it is a 5/2. Not quite a 6/2, but Jake's taking a think. And it does look like wants to take the trade, preserve the life total.
All right, Cathar flipping over again. Day becomes night. Atraxa will come in. So Caleb down to 4, Jake up to 23 now, back over his starting life total.
Sheesh. Yeah, we saw how fast Caleb was, but this 8/8 Vigilance Lifelink has just dominated the board. We see how the first Atraxa really finds the second one, as we do put a Jegantha in hand and pass back. Caleb, once again, in an interesting spot. The backside of Budoka card does have first strike, so it can actually attack into this Atraxa, and a Ganjo combination, you'd actually kill it.
Yeah, you can also get funky sometimes and Iganjo your own attacker that's being blocked by the Atraxa to deny the lifelink, but that only works if the rest of your attackers add up to their life total, and tough to counter 23 at this stage.
Big agree. I can't do it normally, let alone at this stage. It looks like... Did we double spell? Why is the Atraxa going underneath? I think we should probably get a judge involved. I'm not sure exactly why this Brutal Cathar transformed. I think both players just made a small little mistake.
Yeah, going to get some clarity on that real quick.
Yeah, let's get a judge down to the table. Hopefully someone hears me.
Because there is a big difference between the Cathar flipping and the Cathar not flipping. So definitely want some clarity on that before too many game actions continue getting taken here.
Yeah, because I don't think Jake we didn't miss anything, right? Jake didn't accidentally cast something, and we're missing because Jake just put Jegantha in hand, and then Caleb had no plays. Looks like Chad agrees with us. Looks like our EP heard us, I should say. It's going to get on down there. And it looks like, it looks like the players are... There's something. We'll have this taken care of, though, in a second. Really easy fix from where we're at. We're just going to rewind, put the Fatal Push back in hand, put the Brave back in hand. A little awkward that this happened. And then the Atraxa will have a counter on it, and we can move on with our day. Yep. We're going to come back to the booth here, and the judge is going to figure it out. This is a really sort of easy fix, and everything's just going to take a second. Even when the fix is easy, we want to make sure that we have everything correct and we're not, rushing through something. So we're going to be back here for a second, and we're going to talk about this matchup a little bit, because it's been impressive how much the mono white player has been able to stay in this against Atraxa.
It's been a very strange game, right? Like the mono white deck hasn't attacked for 4 or 5 turns at this point, but that's just how it goes. So we are going to talk to the judge directly ourselves real quick, just to get this all clarified. Hi there. So it seems like the Brutal Cathar transformed back from the night side to the day side without 2 spells having been played by its controller.
Yep.
Perfect.
And so they're going to check that out for us real quick. Super easy fix. These sort of things happen, especially if you've played a lot of when we back in our day, Dom, and Innistrad, it was you don't cast spells, it flips day back and forth, and now things are different. We have a day-night mechanic, which is technically a mechanic, and we get to sort of experience that fun that it brings to the game.
I know that in some of Mark Rosewater's design retrospective and such on these various sets, he did note that some players said that the day-night mechanic was sometimes tricky to track in paper, which is something of an understatement. The more I play with it, I wonder, dear God, is it just me? Am I getting old, or is everyone else having the same problem here?
I think day-night is something that everyone can sort of handshake on. Like, this is hard to track. Also, who's in charge of tracking it? Let's say we both have day-night creatures, right? So what's going on?
we got some judges here in the chat, and they can back me up on this. But it used to be back in our day that both players were responsible for tracking everything that was going on in the game, including both players' triggers. And it always felt terrible when you got some kind of penalty for not tracking something that your opponent also missed that spawned from their card. And with day-night, both players have to track it, even though a lot of the time, right? I know you dabble in Legacy, and I do as well. The one Outland Liberator in my Green Sun Zenith deck, that's the only day-night card in both players' 150 cards combined. But if we don't track this together for the rest of the game, then we get escorted from the building. So, it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, it's a big asking. Like, oh, if it reanimates, some weird way, or gets shuffled back into my deck because of endurance, we got to keep track of this, And you unfortunately have to do it, but that is part of the fun and the complexity. Magic's the most complex game in the world because of day night. Actually, if it wasn't for day night, it would just be really easy to play.
Well, I'm such a boomer that I remember when they had the big M10 rules changes, right? They removed Mana Burn from the game. Damage didn't use the stack anymore. And so many people were outraged that they were dumbing down the game and the game wouldn't be score testing anymore. Turns out Magic's still plenty hard, even without the designers adding more responsibilities on top of that.
I can't imagine seeing Mana Burn and being like, this comes up all the time. Like, my mana drain's just better counterspell now, It's just like, when is this actually happening? When are people floating mana? Is Dark Ritual really something? Like, the situation's coming up a bunch. It's very funny.
Talking to a group of Magic players and realizing none of them knew what it meant for damage to use to stack. This was just a completely foreign language to them. That's when I knew I was old and long in the tooth. And it's only downhill from here.
Yeah, that's the thing I always wonder about pre-modern players. Like, there's a subset of players that like to play that format. Do they play by the pre-modern rules, Dom? What's sort of going on in that department? That's something that I ask myself a lot. It's like, is it really the fun as part of the rules as well? We have to get some pre-modern people in the chat. Let us know what they sort of think.
I'm a pre-modern person, Mason, and we do play with the modern rule set. It is kind of funny to think about, right? All these complaints about the London Mulligan and so on. You don't want to go back to the 90s. You don't want to play under the real old school rules because no one's having a good time with that.
That's fair. We're going to check and see what's going on with the judge here. I assume that they'll be fixed really soon here. It's still going on. Okay. Once again, you want to be sure to make the right sort of thing and make sure there's no ill intent. I think it's just a pretty easy mistake, but that's not my job to figure out. That's for the judges to do, and that's they're very important, helpful part of the game to let these tournaments happen for us. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot going on with current Magic and sort of stuff happening. Speaking of current Magic, Dom, this is something that might be important for the NRG series later. What do you think about the new standard rule changes? So now we're standard. If you haven't heard, it's gonna be 3 years for rotation, which means we're gonna get another year with Kamigawa and friends. And then a year plus from now, they'll rotate away. So, Don, what do you think about these changes?
It's a seismic shift. It's a big deal, and maybe something like that needs to happen just to give Standard that jolt in the arm that it needs to come back as a paper format. I have my reservations, though, because we've seen a lot of these emergency bans or just regular scheduled bans have to happen in Standard over the past few years. A big part of why I think confidence in the format has dimmed down, and they're going to need to try and bring that back. So I do worry that mid-season you're going to see some card emerge that's just too dominant. Something has to be taken down a peg, and we're going to have to wait for months for that to happen. And outside of that scheduled fall banning event towards the latter half of the year, then you have this brief window after a set releases where you can do that. But they've already said that's an emergency measure. We hope to not have to resort to that. Given the past 2 years, I think they're probably going to have to resort to that. So we'll see what the reaction is if and when that happens. But I want to be optimistic about this, but that phase of the announcement has me a little concerned.
Yeah, we're going to have to see. There is going to be, we haven't heard already, there's going to be, I think it's next week, May 29th, we're going to get an emergency sort of status quo update with the idea of being like, hey, the original intention wasn't to have all of these cards together. So we're going to do some pre-bans, not only to shake up the format you're playing right now, which is pretty exciting. We've seen Rakdos really dominate. Who knows what exactly the bans will be, but also this will help make the Eldraine Ixalan card shine a bit more because we weren't intending to have these two things together. We think it just won't play out well. So we're going to sort of patch our game a little bit and we'll sort of see what happens from there. And then, now we also have the yearly announcement, which is part 2 of this, right, Dom? You and I are really big Modern and Legacy and Pioneer fans, and having, once a year, essentially minus special occasions, a ban situation really lets us not only know how to create content and think about that sort of thing, but also like, hey, it's safer to buy into these decks. You're going to have it for at least a year. It looks like we have breaking news coming in from the floor. What's going on there, floor reporter? Okay. So it looks like what happened is the rewind was decided. Caleb's like, oh, well, if this rewind's happening and I sort of done this already, I'm dead on board. Let's pick up my cards and game number 2. So let's check out this player's sideboard. So just in case you didn't get it, the mono white player was like, oh, if the track is going to hit me, I'm going to die. Why play it out? Meanwhile, the mono white players sideboard is going to have a couple cards this matchup. They have 4 Wedding Announcement, 3 Rest in Peace, 2 Containment Priest, 2 Destroy Evil, 2 Portable Hole, and 2 Redain. Dom, what are the cards you're sort of winning in this matchup?
I like a lot of these. I think if you were building your mono white human deck with this matchup in mind, this is how you would do it. To say nothing of that one Scavenger Grounds hiding out in the main deck there. Very, very hateful choice, but great matchup for it. But for these sideboard cards, the Rest in Pieces, we love those. Destroy Evil can hit the Delve creatures, all the Atraxa after it comes down. Containment Priest, also fantastic, can play that in response to a Neoform and just gobble up the whole thing. So love all of those, and maybe shave some of the cards like Brave the Elements or some of the weaker creatures.
I love that as well. Also surprised
in the main deck. And then moving over to the Neoform side. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's go to the Neoform side. Surprised not to see any Sheffet Dunes if we have the Scavenging Grounds. But we have 3 Glissa Sunslayer, 3 Mystical Dispute, 3 Raven Enfeeblement, 2 Abrupt Decay, 2 Terra Cinder, Jegantha, and Duress as the sideboard for Jake here. What do you like if you're Jake with these cards?
So I love the Raven Enfeeblements, of course. Just another really good versatile removal spell. We got some Duresses and Stump Denials stinking out the joint in the main decks. We got a lot of room to fill. So I like the Rays, like the Abrupt Decays on the same basis, can also hit Rest in Pieces, which you have to think are going to be there in some number. And then I also like Glissa Sunslayer a lot. So this is a card which can threaten a good attack to blow up a Rest in Peace. Very difficult to block or to attack into as well. First strike and Death Touch, really potent combination against any kind of creature deck.
Yeah, I big agree. I'm excited to see sort of exactly how Jake approaches those games. Glissa, like we just mentioned, it's really hard to attack into. It also, if you start attacking with it, it's going to answer some of those problematic cards. Ossification's another card that the mono white deck can easily have. It's really funny also to think about Glissa as a creativity hate card. If they try to worm combo you, Glissa just sits there strongly down, like slaying down the worms. But we're going to see exactly what the players do.
I hadn't considered that angle, but that is very funny. I hope we get to see that come up.
Yeah. I have had to fight through a Glissa Sunslayer before. It is rough. But let's see what's going on here. The players are shuffling up for game number 2. And if you're enjoying the NRG series, make sure to follow. That way you won't miss any of the action happening. You can also follow us out to our next event. We're going to the Chicagolandia area and June 24th and 25th for a modern 10K and a legacy trial 5K. So if you win our Saturday 10K event, you're going straight to the NRG series championship at the end of the year. The trial will award leaderboard points, just like everything else. But if you love Legacy, it's a great way to do it. And then in July, we're going to St. Louis on the 8th and the 9th. We have a team showdown, so you and your friends get together, have some fun there. The formats are Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. And for you Legacy heads, we have a 5K trial on the next day. Also, that is a team showdown, just like I mentioned for both today and the Chicagolandia. If you and your friends qualify and win that one, all 3 of you go to our series event at our championship at the end of the year for the series. So that's a great way for you and your friends to sort of take your shot together and make it to our end of the year tournament, which is big cash prizes, bigger than ever. And then we also are going to Detroit still this year. We're heading out over there August 12th to the 13th. We have another Modern Showdown 10K and a Pioneer 5K trial. A lot going on there. So it's going to be really exciting to see what's happening in Detroit. And like Dom mentioned, Steven Dykeman, one of our top players, is there. Roger Suleiman, our reigning champion. So a lot going on as we're into the game here. Looks like Jake played a land go, and Caleb is casting a Thalia on the play, and Jake's going to respond with a little Otherworldly Gaze and sort of fill the graveyard up. Looks like we're banning 2 cards that we don't want, so there's something we do like. Does he an Overgrown Tomb?
Also very nice to just get that graveyard stocked for your Delve creatures, which... Yeah, there we go. So another planes there, and there is Rest in Peace through Thalia with attacks there for Caleb Spicer. So going to force Jake to have an answer to that to continue participating in this game. See if they have Glissa would be ideal here, but even something like Abrupt Decay just to keep things moving.
100%. As we do see a Mana Confluence, we're going to spin 3 life, and we're going to cast Strategic Planning. Look at our top 3, put 1 hand, 2 in the yard. And
that's not going to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so ball very much in Caleb's court here. See if they have a good follow-up to continue applying some pressure. There's hope for Initiate. And here is Goblin Vanguard. Okay, so that counts. That qualifies.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure on the board. Jake down to 14 with, I believe, 8 damage coming in on the next turn. That's a lot. You know, you're talking about a true turn clock with no real way to get a creature in play. You're gonna need something like Glissa Sunslayer or a Fatal Push. And if you want a Fatal Push Thalia, it's gonna cost you a bunch of mana. Not only is Thalia in play, but Copper Hoop gives other humans a Ward 1. It looks like Jake has taken a think. Looks like gonna play Darkslick Shore past. It looks like we're gonna do an upkeep. And yeah, we're gonna lose a life from the Mana Confluence, and we're gonna brave the elements here, preventing Caleb from, you know, having all the mana available to him on that turn. Yeah, as we do see an animation of
There's still enough to, yeah.
10?
Let's see,
Oh,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Coppercoat.
I think we are in garbage time. There we go. So game 2 will go very quickly to Caleb Spicer. We'll go to a game 3 here. We'll take a look at the player sideboards here. Don't think there's anything too much in terms of play versus draw going on, but worth checking in again here. So as we see, the Glitters, I'm sure, came in. Raven Feeblement, Abrupt Decay. We see Terra Sunder as well. Is that a card that you have any interest in? Like, it does deal with Rest in Peace, but dealing with anything else is pretty expensive.
Yeah, I have a bunch of cards I kind of want to cut. Like these Stubs, Thoughtseizes, and Duresses, I'm all like, I don't want these, right? So that gives me 9 cards. My Raven Fieldmans and Glissas are giving me 6 cards. My Abrupt Decays are 8. So really, I could totally see one Terra Sunder coming in this matchup because it is, you know, a clunky way to answer a creature in the late game. And early, Rest in Peace is such a pivotal card that, you know, if you pass with turn 2, you know, you maybe set up a little bit, they Rest in Peace, you blow it up immediately. Bam, you're in such a better spot. And this is where play draw matters so much. You know, we saw Caleb last game develop Thalia into Rest in Peace. Not much that Jake could do there, and got on board really quickly. Now that, you know, Jake's on the play, they're going to have more time to sort of set up and answer these sort of impact cards from Caleb. From the white sideboard, though, looking at that, I don't think there's anything that really changes. I think, like you mentioned before, you sort of had a sideboard and like a plan for this matchup that was very good looking. Like this looks like a matchup Caleb was preparing for, and I can't imagine much changing.
No, Rest in Peace is great. Containment Priest, great. Destroy Evil, great. All of that was true before, still true now. So I think Caleb will be quite happy to run it back, even on the draw here.
I agree. Well, let's see if our players are ready. As it does look like Jake is shuffling up. Yeah, Jake on a mulligan to 6. So didn't find the right 7-card hand. And, you know, with a deck like a Neoform, you're going to want to actually have like the right sort of cards. You can go down to as low as 5 cards. And if you have the right setup material, you can succeed in your Atraxa. You know, even if it didn't draw cards, just having that huge body will go the distance. As Jake is shocking in a Watery Grave. And we're going to see Caleb play a Plains and Passes. Otherworldly Gaze is the play for Jake.
Yeah, so whenever your mono white human's opponent passes without playing a 1-drop, given that they have so many in the deck, it looks like 12 at a quick count here for Caleb, you have to wonder, okay, what does the rest of the hand look like? Why would they keep a relatively slow hand? So Rest in Peace would be an obvious answer for that, but you start to try and put the pieces together even at this early stage of the game.
Yeah, 100%. Every action your opponent makes is telling you a story of what's in their hand. And so, you know, even the act of not doing something tells it. And, you know, Jake been to Thoughtseize there. So there was something else Jake went instead. Maybe it was the land was needed. As it does look like Caleb has a 1-drop and didn't have a Rest in Peace. Or maybe is playing around Stubborn Denial. Hard to know for sure. Couldn't quite see Caleb's hand as we see another Otherworldly Gaze here to set up for Jake.
So this is interesting. Yeah. I wonder if the single white by itself, I mean, represents Brave the Elements, but it's kind of tough to figure out, okay, what is in Caleb's hand? Maybe some of these powerful 3-drops, like a Brutal Cathar, Adeline, something like that. Maybe there's just a bunch of these reactive cards like Destroy Evil, maybe?
Yeah, that might be the case. It might have also been just a case of had some... Yeah, it does look like Destroy Evil's in the hand. And that's going to clean up this Tasigur if Caleb wants to do it now. And that's
the nice thing for... Yeah, Scavenger Grounds, dear Lord.
Yeah.
Drake taking the Scavenger Grounds in his stride, but I probably would have had a visible reaction to that one.
Yeah, I would have asked to read that one. Be like, this is as bad as I think it is, right? Like, I can't win if this resolves. Okay, cool. You know, as we do see Jake cast strategic planning. And we might just see Caleb, if Caleb has some more lands in hand, might just activate Scavenger Grounds and keep Jake off the ability to put a Delve creature in hand. Caleb, as we do see it here, exile the graveyard. Jake has a lot of spells in hand, but clearly doesn't have much going on, doesn't have the land, so you can't hardcast anything. Just sort of, rest in peace at home. It does look like Caleb is going to play this Mutavault. Nope. He's going to play this Aganjo and attack for 2. Holding up Brave the Elements some more. Maybe a moment where Caleb should have thought through the whole turn and played the Mutavault, but not going to be the end of the world.
Here is this Adeline?
Yeah,
there she is.
Adeline. And yeah, we're going to fatal push the Dauntless Bodyguard to prevent any sort of trigger from happening.
And Raven Feebleman here, is that?
Yeah, that would be the card.
You gotta hope so. But there is that pesky 1 white mana threatening to protect it. But okay, Abrupt Decay does say Adeline down. And now Jake doing not a bad job at stabilizing, but stabilizing isn't enough. You gotta follow that up with some action, and we don't have that just yet.
100%, yeah. And we're seeing Caleb does have, develop to board plus activate Mutavault. It looks like another Adeline into animate Mutavault, bam, attack, get 3 damage and get a token. Now Caleb's actually, it gets out of hand really quickly with Adeline. One of the best aggro white creatures we've seen in a very long time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's weird to think just how many good white 3-drops for aggro have been printed, and it's a testament that you kind of need to support lower down the curve, like the 1s and the 2s. It's part of why Mono White hasn't really gained any traction in standard, but going to these larger formats where, you can have 12 1-drops in your deck and a bunch of these good 2s. Adeline, perfect curve decks like that.
Yep. And we're going to see Coppercoat Vanguard into Recruitment Officer into Animate Mutavault attack for 5. And then Jake's on the back foot. If Jake
and now this is Jake is dead on board.
Yeah. If Jake can go like Fatal Push, have a land, play a Tasigur, we might be able to chump block our way through, but it does look like Jake is just fallen too far behind. And Caleb, showed us just how close it was in game 1 of everything, and then came in the post-board games and really ran over Jake. So congratulations to Caleb there, winning that. We're going to see if Caleb wants to do an interview here with us in a second with the old W, but congratulations there, and really sort of a masterclass on how you can break up this Atraxa deck. And even though it can be overwhelmingly strong, it does need to sort of get the engines going before having that end state.
Yeah, so we're going to see if we're going to interview him or if we're going to head down to our feature. It sounds like the feature there is going to go to game 3, so we're going to join them for that, join them live, and see how that matchup plays out. I guess I spoiled what happened in the first two games. I'm sorry about that, but third one, we'll keep the sense of mystery there.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for at least letting the third one be a mystery as it happens in real time. But those decks are going to be Azorius Control versus Abzan Greasefang. It's a pretty exciting one there. I'm going to take a shot in the dark and guess Greasefang won game 1. That's typically how these things go.
As it is want to do, the kind of deck which left to its own devices will just run over most opposition, and then the post-sideboard games tend to be a little tougher. But it sounds like that was actually flipped around in this case. So Azorius Control from Sean Gallagher took the first game, Absent Greasefang from Captain Granger took game 2, and so Sean will be on the play again if that is correct, heading into this third and final game.
Yeah, and being on the play matters so much. We talked about last game how that was going to put our Atraxa player in a spot where maybe they could, develop a little bit, stop the counter answers, and then move forward. For a deck like Azorius Control, being able to slam a Rest in Peace and then untap with counter spells makes only cards like Boseiju as an answer. And those things will really swing the game. So Sean Gallagher definitely looking to have some sort of draw like that with a high impact hate card. Also, Sean here playing 60 cards, right? We saw George DeVore in our earlier round playing a blue-white control with 80. We're down to 60 here. We're keeping it lean and mean.
Yeah, definite trade-offs involved with adding a companion to your deck. But the nice thing about Azorius Control is a lot of them just get to free roll the Kahira as a companion, or Zerda even, regardless. Sean Gallagher actually not doing that, though, because we have this creature package in the sideboard, the Baneslayer Angels and Hullbreaker Horrors and so on, taking the place of that.
Yeah. Dom, here's a question I have. I'm thinking about a lot, is We can pull up these deck lists real quick while we're taking a mulligan really quick here from Kat. Do you think Sean should just play a Kahira even though sometimes we sideboard into these other stuff?
I think you probably should. Yeah, like it's as low impact as it's possible for a companion to really be. And in game one scenarios, like you turn on all of the removal spells which you want to blank by being an otherwise creatureless deck. But even with that, I think like how important is that 15th sideboard slot really? Having the Kahira, I think it's usually worth the sacrifice. I couldn't see though on that logic if you think, okay, this is never coming up in game one, and then post sideboard, I'm basically always boarding in either my angels over here or my Hullbreaker Horrors and so on over here. At that point, when is the Kahira actually staying eligible in your deck? It's not a large set of matchups.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of like only in the super late game. It's just always curious to me. You know, players go like, oh, I've got this one Baneslayer. And in this case, we have a lot of creatures, but it's definitely a curious spot here. As we do see some land goes, a cycling of an irrigated farmland for Sean. Kat Miller holding up Grizzly Salvage, and then boom, she plays it. We're going to see a Dovin's Veto on that. No setup cards here today.
Yeah, if you can counter the enablers like the Grizzly Salvage, then you don't have to worry as much about just taking the shields down and then Grease Fang surprising you out of nowhere.
As we do see,
but there is Parhelion.
Yeah, Rafine's Informant connives away the Parhelion. So now not only do you have pressure on board, we have this sort of combo looming over the game where, you know, at any point, if Cat decides to tap out for a Grease Fang, we're going to be a good spot. Sean does have Settle the Wreckage in hand, though. So that will not only answer the Parhelion cleanly, but exile it. So definitely big.
Yeah, Settle the Wreckage, a pretty controversial card in these control decks, I think, tends to be overrated by less experienced players, but in certain situations, it is the biggest blowout you can imagine, and a pretty good insurance against these big turns in the Grease Fang decks.
Yeah, Sean has two of them. It's something that you definitely see players also consider more an open deck list, right? Once your opponent knows you have Settle the Wreckage, that sort of gives you some amount of value, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe they outthink themselves in these spots. As it does look like Cat is going to attack for 3, get it in, and then play the Seeker's Chariot and just be like, hey, guess what? I've got this backup plan. What are you going to do?
Yeah, the Settle is a little less reliable in the face of cards like Thoughtseize, and then post sideboard, usually there's stuff like Duresses, Liliana of the Veil, we see both in Cat's deck. And so you just sitting back, passing with your very obvious 4-mana open, if the opponent sniffs that out and they have the tools, they can do something about that.
Mm-hmm. We are going to see a Field of Ruin make a Samurai with this Emperor that came down the end of the turn and pass the turn back. And yeah, we've got a little bit of a board state going here at this Wandering Emperor. Chose not to, you know, exile away the Rafine Informant. Going to make the game about the Emperor for a couple turns. Looks like Kat Miller is shocking in. She has plans for all her mana. It is going to be a Grease Fang. This might be a Grease Fang into a Can't Stay Away little Wombo combo. As we are going to see Kat. Yeah, Sean's in a spot where, you know, if Sean can trick Kat into, you know, trick, quote unquote, into animating with the Chariot, attacking with everything, getting the Settle the Wreckage, we could see a huge blowout turn here. As it does look like Dom has disconnected for a second. So we're going to get a judge call, probably looking for Oracle text on a card. It's possible this Grease Fang is, you know, maybe non-English. And so, you know, it's always good just to get that happen here. Also, it might be an interaction question here. Dom, as you're come back here, it looks like Sean is getting a Oracle text situation / asking how something works, which is pretty exciting. Love to learn. Don't you love learning?
Maybe. It depends on what the answer is, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah,
I do love to learn, especially lore. I mean, the more lore I can learn, absolutely. You love to see it and you love to learn it.
It's true. Speaking of lore, Dom, do you even know what happened in Aftermath? Looks like Sean's back. He saved you. Lucky.
Anyway.
Lucky ducky. And it does look like Sean's like, yep, happens. Kat Miller's like, bring back my Parhelion. Let's figure out exactly how I want to crew this stuff up. And yeah, it looks like Kat's going to crew the Seeker's Chariot up and obviously, you know, the Parhelion since it's only on the board for one turn. Although maybe she's playing around Settle. It's possible that, you know, Kat got by Settle in a past game. Yeah, it looks like she is going to... Oh, she's crewing the Parhelion with the cats. And then, okay, she's going to crew the Grease Fang. So I thought she was maybe keeping Grease Fang untapped to play around the Wandering Emperor. And it does look like we're going to have all these creatures come in. The 2 angels will be attacking somewhere. Sean's going to, let her do her thing. She's going to copy the token.
Yeah, so it looks like the question may be, can you copy an angel token that's being brought in from the Parhelion? The answer there is no, because you have to declare the target when the chariot trigger goes on the stack, and those triggers will go on the stack at the same time. So only going to get a cat out of the equation here, which will be relevant given that everything is about to disappear in the face of that Settle the Wreckage.
Yeah, this Settle the Wreckage is going to be nice from Sean. It is really going to prevent this creature from being a problem. And Cat here only has 1 basic in the deck. So it's not even like Cat's going to, get this huge mana advantage and be able to sort of burst ahead. Yeah. And, we're going to have to search a deck for 7 lands. So it's like, okay, well, the 2 cats are still on the board.
These are... Yes.
There they go. Okay.
And a 3rd cat from the chariot. There we go. So yeah, these are the visions that you have when you put the card Settle the Wreckage in your deck. You imagine scenarios like this happening, and Sean gets to live that dream here. It is also, you are obliged to remind your opponent that they can search for basic lands with a card like Settle. So it's an awkward interaction sometimes if you know that they don't have any basics left, and they know that but just for the sake of rules, you gotta remind them regardless.
Yeah.
Like, you sure you don't want a basic over there, buddy?
Yeah. Hey, friend, I noticed you only grabbed 1 planes from your deck. Just a reminder, I just 9 for 1 G. You could get 8 more if you'd like. Yeah, I'll say this too. Players talked about this when it first came out, but the Wandering Emperor and Settle the Wreckage do work nicely together. That is a small little nod in that direction. Like, how do you play around both? As we are going to see just a Supreme Verdict as the play here. Really no board left. And it looks like we're going to minus the Emperor and get a Samurai.
Yes, that is the rarely seen Fleeting Spirit there from Cat. One of these 3 Discard outlets, which can also flicker itself until the end of turn in the face of a sweeper like Supreme Verdict. So nice little addition there. And here's Liliana the Veil, one of 4 copies in Cat 75, 2 in the main deck and then 2 more in the sideboard.
Yeah, we're going to take up. Speaking of copies, Sean discards the 2nd copy of Settle the Wreckage. It's like,
the first one did its job. It's fine.
Yeah. Sean's deck's all board wipes. As we do see, it looks like another Wandering Emperor in hand. We might see a little cheeky attack. Would you like to trade? If so, get a little first strike action. One of my favorite little modes.
So this is a spot now where if Cat just draws, let's say, a Nasika's Chariot, right, and has Liliana going, and she might be able to just reclaim the advantage again that way.
100%, yeah. Also, it looks like her mana is good, but Sean knows, hey, there's no way she played around me, saving this Field of Ruin. I can start blowing up lands if the mana gets a little tighter. So we might see Sean start doing something like that, as he does have lots of Field of Ruins in his 75. As another Liliana Veil off the top. So minus kill the Samurai, play this tick up. Can Liliana get Cat Miller out of this?
Yeah, Wandering Emperor showing its stuff as a combat trick there, just letting the token eat the Rafine's Informant in combat. So Sean has the edge on the board, and Hall of Storm Giants are a phenomenal attacker and blocker with enough mana.
Yeah, Hall's been a great card for taking over, and the Seeker's Chariot off the top is such a good draw. That's going to give Cat Miller a big board, and this Liliana is going to take up, get rid of the Glacial Fortress. Yeah, and now Sean really needs a land to start activating this Hall. We do have the Emperor that can make another 2/2 to offer some trades. But if we draw, I can't stay away, we're a Grease Fang. We're going to be in a great spot as another Samurai comes down. Ooh, Cat drew a spell. She's thinking. Do you think there's ever a world where Cat minuses, Sean activates Hall of Storm Giants and sacrifices it?
Hmm.
It's pretty deep.
You could. I mean, the hole is so good if you find that extra land though. But it's Shot Typhoon. Okay,
Oh, that's big.
that is really big. And crucially now, Liliana can get attacked down by the shark. Is not going to be able to ultimate next turn. So yeah, really big turn there for Sean Gallagher.
Yeah, that Liliana was sort of Cat's like big way of winning the game. The Liliana did a great job of getting Cat back in this game. You know, this Liliana, well, the Lilianas have really stabilized, but now with this huge shark in the way, and we have to figure out how we're going to get through it. I wonder if we might see Cat Miller just a Seeker's Chariot and try to attack down this Emperor, make some more cat tokens, and then just hope to, you know, have the shark get cleanly answered by Liliana minus in the next turn. It seems like the only out. I don't know. It's gonna be a hard one for her to figure out.
Yeah, you can try and trade off a bunch of cards, but it's tricky. I think the long game favors Sean Gallagher.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Cat had to animate the chariot and make another cat.
There is the Parhelion in the graveyard now, though. So any top deck Grease Fang could break the game wide open again. So the game will go on, and there is some tension to be had still.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is definitely not over. It's just a moment of Cat Gallagher needing to find. Oh, we're just gonna, you know, bin one. Yeah. Is that a Professor of Symbology? What was that? Oh, that's the Fleeting Spirit. Looks like we're tanking again here. We got exactly have if we win attack or not. Sean notably didn't draw a land. Definitely would have played any land. Obviously, the temporary lockdown get discarded. So looks like, yeah, we're animating and crewing up and attacking the Emperor, and it looks like we're going to get 2 samurai. Oh, might have all the samurais trade. All right, looks like the Emperor is going to die, and we're going to have the chariot get traded off with it.
Yeah, good, I think, to triple block in those situations, just in case there is some random removal spell to mess that up. But
yeah,
Sean gets a trade that he wants.
The block with all my creatures line is underused in Magic. As we do see,
it's also just satisfying to just grab an entire set of creatures and shove them in front of one thing.
Yeah, we see Sean rip another temporary lockdown, and Cat Miller, you saw her tap the top of her deck. She had hit that Grease Fang, should have been great. And rest in peace off the top. Oh my goodness, Sean Gallagher with just the draw he needed to really get things going. And now Cat Miller needs to draw more Seeker's Chariot type cards and bodies if she's going to take over this game. As we do see a Vessel of Nathancy be the draw for the turn. Looks like she's lining up if she wants to crack this or not. Looks like we are cracking
in a weird way. The rest in peace didn't do anything immediately, but it meant that so many of Cat's draws would be less threatening if the wrong thing happened.
Yeah, and it looks like Cat found a Sky Sovereign, which is a threat. I'm gonna put that into our hand, and let's see. Does Cat have? Yeah, Cat does have 3 Witherbloom commands in the deck, which is pretty stock these days. That is a way to also get rid of this Rest in Peace. So it's not like we're cold to the Rest in Peace for the remainder of the game, as we are going to see a Sky Sovereign come on down here. We see Cat play the land first, play around cards like Make Disappear. It looks like a pass back.
Mason, have you been practicing your barge sound since the last time we were in here together?
That's my barge sound.
Thank you. There we go.
Yeah.
So Sean, now I could be getting aggressive with this Hall of Storm Giants, right? Although Wandering Emperor is another good way to use your mana, I suppose.
Yeah. And, you know, Sean wanted to get that going, and now has Animate the Hall, you know, maybe grow the Hall. As we are going to see an attack for 9, put Cat down to 9, and then make another token. And yeah, we're going to see Cat need to draw some sort of chump blocker. Something played great this game, but just barely got away from her. This is why you see, you know, these control decks can succeed in Pioneer. They sort of have these high impact cards that are very swingy if they can get the game to the point to resolve them. it's really about getting the games to those points. That is sort of the hardest part of it all. As we do see Kat taking a think. Looks like she has a Parhelion, or maybe it's a Seeker's Chariot and a Mana Confluence. Hard to tell. She's flicking quick. Yeah, I think that is a Seeker's Chariot. So that would mean we're able to block. I guess the question is, because if you crew the boat this turn, attack down the Emperor, kill the token, you go to 1. So
Okay. So
yeah,
we stay alive by the skin of our teeth.
Yep. And it looks like Sean has the Dovin's Veto in hand. Big think time. Yeah, and it looks like Sean's just going to take up and pass. Pretty good sign for Kat. I feel like, I don't know, I hate doing predictive plays, but it does feel like Kat is... First in, looks like she's playing the land. Oh, the Shark Typhoon is game over.
Well,
yeah. No matter what we did there, we were going to be end up there. So congratulations to Sean Gallagher. That was a crazy game number 3. That was a really cool one to watch there. Really back and forth, and Kat really sort of showed like, hey, I can have these bad things happen, everything work out, and I can still sort of power through. We saw George Jabor sort of, control expert in round 1 talk about like, hey, I'm really worried about the Grease Fang matchup. I need cards for this. And we see why, even when we get these insane 3 or 4 for ones, wasn't enough to really just, kick the lights out of the matchup, and needed to go the distance there with another Shark Typhoon. So congratulations to Sean. And I think that's going to do it for us this round, Dom. And so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with round number 5 in just a few minutes.